Okay, it's me. I'm just prepping for the live hour that's going to start like in 1 minute. So I decided it's on creativity. So this is my newest steel tongue drum. This is my newest like adventure or thing. So I thought I'll wait another minute and then I'll start formally on the Native Wellness Power on creativity and your health, life wave past, your galactic journey. All right. Isn't that cool? So what I was doing, this has numbers on it, but some of what. So this morning I was thinking of like if the res dogs had a tone, and then we're going to start in 30 seconds. That'd be the res dog chime for me, because you know how those res dogs like they're looking at the corner they're going to go to, but they lope sideways kind of. So anyway, so this is a little tonal thing. So it is new time now, so I'm just going to place this where it won't fall over. So good afternoon. Well, it's noon here in Montana, and 1 p.m. in Montana. And so I'd like to welcome you to the Native Wellness Power Hour. And this is really on creativity. And what does that mean, right? So I don't have all the answers, but they let me on here anyway. No, I'm kidding. What I'd like to do first, because I practice saying this, I'd like to thank the Noise Foundation for working with the Native Wellness Institute, and then I also know that the folks at NICWA had something to do with really helping support the Power Hour, and it's in its 5th week. So, I was raised by one of the pioneers in, that's the wrong word, right? One of the Indian trailblazers in really addressing the impacts of substance abuse on our communities. And that's anything that alters your mood, basically, like it's a behavior, it could be a substance, it could be a person, all that kind of stuff. But my mom, and so I was around a lot of folks when I was a teenager that would say things, and they, as people got different strategies, how do we heal from whatever. That's what I'm going to say. They'd say it takes 21 days. It's like drum to my 21 days, 21 days, 21 days, 21 days to like start some new habits. So I kind of want to be mindful of that, because during this time, right, that 21-day philosophy of behavioral change, models of change, was not designed to address the things that are happening now that we're all collectively sharing. The pandemic, kind of my hashtag is, it's a pandemic, don't panic. So what I'd like to be mindful of is like anything I say, it's come from tools I've been using really, since it became apparent that this was going to come to our homeland here, in the Blackfoot Confederacy homeland. Right now we're in the province of Alberta, but also in Montana. And so I just want to be mindful of that. And so during this time, when I thought of preparing for this hour, I thought, well, let me really share what it meant to use creativity in my wellness journey. And also, when I was in my friends group, when I was in my 20s, and I made the decision to follow another way of life, to get those things out of my life that harm me or cause me pain, or and start cleaning up my own house. And what happened was, it's kind of like it's kind of like that winter scratchy flaky skin. You kind of got to shed it in the spring, and this is springtime now here in Montana, and or it still snows, but you know that's our spring, and so you got to slough off that flaky skin. And creativity really, that English word really matches in my journey with another one, change. And so I've been able to have the opportunities, I've been gifted, I've been fortunate, all those words that say somehow the Creator heard my plea that I wanted to live a different way. And different opportunities were put in front of me. And so out of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those individual ones, but all my opportunities really were a part of my spiritual journey. Because that's what guides my healing. So I know that, you know, I've been in my lifetime, I have met other indigenous people, I've met a lot of other folks, you know, from other cultures that they doubt the Creator, or they doubt the divine, or, you know, the spiritual part. But as an indigenous person, I don't. Because my life is the expression of somebody's prayer that lived before me. Because when you look at all the stuff that when I look at all the stuff that my ancestors went through, and I wonder how they made it. I wonder how they made it. And when I was little and things were painful for me in my home, I would always be visited in prayer by my ancestors. I knew they loved me. I knew that they prayed for me. And I think I've been, so in creativity's always been a part of that. And, but also, you know, I guess I'm going to talk about this too a little bit. In each story, there's a component of that. That creativity doesn't mean you have to immediately start selling yourself, but also your products, right? Creativity is a way to help you move through your own story, through your own path. And so a lot of the things I do, will I ever get a Grammy? You know, that ain't my goal. But if that's your goal, cool. But if I do something, I am not adopting the non-Indians way to immediately make it a consumer item. You know, or, you know, I am not going, that's not the whole of creativity. Although, if you're successful, because there are some successful artists, I'm glad for them, I'm happy for them, woohoo, you know, let's do an honor dance at the next powwow. But creativity is a way that you move yourself, you move your story when you're stuck. And there's language about like that we're living under now. There's probably like in the last couple of years, everybody is going to Las Vegas for a trauma-informed workshop, or trauma-informed this, trauma-informed that. So I think we're past that. We need to be healing-informed. How do you continue to heal? And I think what the pandemic has showed us, and all of us using social media, you know, we desperately need just a platform that's indigenous. Because there are discussions that really, and expressions that we do, that we're doing them because we want to share our story, move along, we want to move to the future. And that's also a function of creativity. It helps you move forward. And what I mean by that is, like in trauma, like you can get frozen, you can get stuck. When you're under stress, old stories start to become, it's like a bad rerun that you can't get away from on TV. You know, stinking, thinking, all that kind of stuff. So you might want to, like, open up that old dusty backpack, and get out some stuff that might not be so good right now in the pandemic, because you can be triggered all kinds of ways, but creativity helps you rechannel the light back into your life. And so I thought I would talk about, I never kept any of these, but early on, I was a self-teacher, but I was never alone in that, because I feel that the gift that comes through my hands, that is expressed through my whole body, my whole spirit, it's also that I am gifted that DNA to be creative, to be expressive. And so if I could offer sort of like just a phrase on creativity. Creativity is the expression of spirit. And it's like that story where, what do you feed? Like if you're trying to have, make a life change of something that maybe is not really working for you. And do you give that the light, the air, or do you give creative expression to that spiritual solution? And really that's creativity for me. And I'm not branded and it's not copyrighted or any of those things, so I don't even have to do a disclaimer, right? And everywhere I go, today I earlier I was in clothes. I want to say that, part of my strategy to get through this pandemic is I get up every day and I put on clothes that I would not be ashamed to be seen around the resin. So I was wearing my pajamas, early. I changed out my pajamas, and then I thought, well, I'm really going to be mindful today about what I share visually and what I can share about and encourage all of you. Because I think in the early 90s when I started doing workshops and I was going to make a joke, but anyway, and I'll tell some jokes because that's who I am also, right? And you have to think creatively to tell jokes. And but early on, I used to hear this in the circle when I worked with people, Indians, and I'm talking about indigenous people, and they would say to me, I can't sing. No. It was as if I was going to ask them, can I poke you with a hot iron? But they would, when I would bring up like vocal expression or talking or speaking in public, I could see it's almost like, these hands swooped in and they swooped in, right? So what I want to say is we're past that time too. I've lived past that. So I figure that's a miracle, right? And so people are free to sing. And one of the things about creativity and being mindful that we're all on a healing journey. That I know we have, people that are highly held up, for their singing abilities. We have sacred song keepers. We have people that if you sing a song within their earshot, they can't help it. The Creator gifted them with a memory that just takes on that song. And so what I want to encourage you is the way sometimes that I learn, I'm a practicing speaker, I want to say, but the way I learn phrases or words or concepts, or the way I begin to integrate them so that they don't oppress me or intimidate me or talk me out of doing a good thing, is because there's a lot of ways to say no in the English language. That's how tricky and dynamic it is. So what I do is I use sound. So like my little drama I was just playing, for you late joiners, I'm going to get it again. So this drum, I feel, is like a neutral tool that I've been using, and I'll tell you how I've been using it in the last couple days. My sister gifted it to me, and so it's a little steel drum. So, and I know there's so many crafty Indians out there. I know somebody could make a version of this. So, but it has numbers on it. So one of the things I do when I'm working and I feel oppressed by, or I'll see something on the computer and I'm like, I don't want that in my world. I just start making up anything to change the energy in the world, because sound changes the air in the room, in the lodge, in the community. And words are just sound. That's all they are. So singing, like I don't want to hate on the tourists that are all trying to come on the res with no mask and all those kind of cool things. So, I was thinking, that's how I'm reconciling that feeling. So sound can be a lot of things. And I also, when I was initially like thinking of today and how you use sound or singing, we all got a name, right? We all got a name. We have nicknames. Indians have like 10 names, right? They have a nickname, they have a legal name, they have a legal name that was changed over time, they have an Indian name, they have 5 Indian. I know some people, they have like 5 Indian names. And the way I just say, I must need 5 names. But the way I think of like names or words is, if you think of a hoop, like a willow hoop or the hoop of a circle, we have many hoops throughout our life. So when I'm thinking about names, they also have sounds. So this is one of my nicknames. Because in English, my brother, when we were little, he would call me Lulu. So if you say Lulu, right? Lulu. So not that's a different type of Lulu. But as a Lulu, if you just start saying that, Lulu, 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 hey ho, hey ho, hey ho, hey ho, hey ho. So you can do all kinds of things just with any word. You can make a song out of any word, right? So one of my younger friends on a different social media platform, she goes, what if I'm not stimulated by that stimulus check? And I, just being me, and I thought, and I know her and she knows me, I put on the comments box, depends on what you buy. So even a word like that, like check, right? So an English word, check, if you say it to, some Indians that are in different tribes than my tribe, if you say check, they think something different. They think it's like thousands of dollars. But for my people, we think $1,750 a year. So even that, $1,750, $1,750, $1,750. So all words, all sounds in creative, or in my mind, have a rhythm. So I'm looking forward to the day that I'm in the circle and everybody makes a song up. Everybody sings a song they made. So that's my wish for all of you that are spending this hour. You take a healthy risk wherever you are at, and you take one word and you make a song out of it, right? I ate some, this is how much people are asked to suspend their disbelief during this time. So I'm just going to say it. Right before this, I ate some coconut milk yogurt. before I got on. I don't know how you milk a coconut, but even that you can make a song up to. So I also use it for like traditional words, because there's like we're still getting over that sort of, you know, residential school, U.S. school system, you know, universityization that our population goes through, when vocabulary becomes a badge of privilege. And so sometimes if you say a word and you're doing your best to practice it, and there'll immediately be someone to correct you. So how do you get beyond? You don't get stuck there, right? That's them working out their stuff, right? And so what I do sometimes is I make up songs to traditional words that I'm trying to learn or that I know. And I just want to celebrate that word, right? So like pikani, there's different ways to say that, like for the name of my people. There's all kinds of different ways to say that, you know, pikani, pikani, you know, pikani, 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 aqua, pikani, pikani, you know, that's a res dude. Anyway, so there's all kinds of ways to say it, but if you just listen to the sound of that word, pikani, 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 and then, you know, if I'm feeling ultra femme, you know, or whatever that means, you know, I could pikani, pikani, pikani. You know, right there's already a song right there, and there you just add that word, honey, right? So anyway, hey, look, that'd be a cool song if everybody like recorded what their Pikani Honey song was. So in creativity, it's also about just noticing what's going on in the moment. So I'm gonna put my little drum down. And so that's my wish, that we all today, after the power hour, you select a word or maybe what you had for lunch, and you just make a song about it. Because songs, what they do, that tone, even like humming, what those songs are all saying to the Creator is that sacred breath you gave me when you gave me life, I'm honoring you with it. That's what you're doing. When you let loose a song in the world, you're feeding that light that creativity brings in. And so I want to talk about like this part of your body that when I've been inundated by mass, you know, making those mass requests, I've also had the experience where part of people's healing journey was that they had to heal from experiences where this part of their face was controlled by somebody else, or this part. And that's also what singing and sound projection, or merely speaking up in a situation. Every time you do that, you are healing through sound. You are giving expression. You are overcoming whatever that experience was prior. But also, right now, I think one of the things that the COVID-19 has taught us, because it has its own life path story now, right? What it has taught us is it's a reminder of the sacredness of breath. And really, in order to live, we need to breathe. And so singing can also do that, or sound projection, creative use of sound that you make. You're your best instrument. You're the best instrument in the world. And it can also help you propel through those moments. So You know, I've learned, and I've been fortunate to have a lot of teachers that have helped me along this way. And I think also one of the things that sometimes I wanted to go places, you know, and I didn't know how I was going to get there. And then suddenly, poof, there I ended because I used my creative thinking. And right now, creativity also can be expressed in intellectual pursuits, what people call intellectual pursuits. Because you don't leave the rest of your body behind when you're doing intensive thinking, or, you know, there are a lot of indigenous people right now working on something, working on some rite of passage through the educational system. And what they're doing, they're using their creative spirit to achieve a goal. And they're using their mind as an expression, maybe writing, you know, making letters. But I also want to talk about a technique that I started using and for myself as part of my own story, my own journey, but also that is easily accessible. Although I'm not so sure now, I mean, the images, I'm just going to tell you, I've sacrificed a lot of books. I cut up books. Librarians turn away. But I've cut pictures out of books, high quality books, because this was part of what I was going to do. I needed to, these materials, I needed to reimagine them in this technique that I'm going to share with you. So there's all ways to catalog your story, to tell your story. And sometimes stories are not, they're not printed on paper, they're not in a song, they're visual. They could be your clothes, they could be the style of your eyebrows, you know, there's all sorts of ways that you can express a story. They could be images, like behind me. Here's some of my mask. You see, I made a mask. I made a mask for my mask up on the wall. Oops. I'll tilt the camera up later. So this is a technique that is based upon collage. And these are, I'll just randomly select one so you could see. So these are picture cards, and they're 5x8. And they're collage compositions that I made. That through interacting with images, and so I'd select images. It's really easy to do. You select 5 images out of just all these different images. That's where the cutting up of books. Don't cut up anybody else's book. They might get them mad. But I've even cut up Edward Curtis books because I needed those pictures. So, and I legally purchased them, so my property. And then I reimagined them. So we'll look at this one. Okay, I'm telling you, I did not rehearse this. This is how things work, right? This is a picture of Two Bear Woman. She is my great-great-grandma. Edward Curtis photographed her, but he also dressed her. So I randomly selected because I'm not looking, and this is the picture. So in this picture, you see, right? So when I selected, I seen this, well, I had created all these clippings, and I pulled this picture out, and I selected some other images, and then I turned them over, and then I just made this card. So the story of this card is her value as a woman. She lived in a time where when they seen a Piikani woman, the outsiders were looking for a different lens. But this is how I see my grandmother. She's that light up in the sky. And that's not a halo. That particular color of blue comes from the earth, near where I live. And but I also seen and I would hear about her how people would get mad at her, and even in some of the federal records, they would get mad at her because she wasn't behaving like a woman. I mean, back then they didn't say "What's up," but anyway. So, and she wouldn't comply in a feminine, wily way. She would challenge people. So she did a lot of things that were innovative. And when they first came to the reservation and they were brokering our land, under the Dawes Act and that legacy and the Burke Act and all those, she was able to creatively think about the living generation now to preserve that land. And that is like really something that is also creative. Some people call it strategic thinking, but you could call it that. That's a good English word. But it's really creative thinking. How are we going to move forward today as nations? What are we learning during the pandemic? And so these cards, because I got a lot of them. So that one was about Two Bear Woman, my ancestor that I won't say randomly I picked out of this stack, but that's kind of how it worked. But these, to create a visual story of life experience, or you can draw, but this is a way that all you need is what's in front of you in your house right now. So I'll just show you and demonstrate another one. Okay, so I'm randomly picking. You guys are my witnesses in case I ever go on trial for thinking creatively. Okay. Let you look at it. So these are, when I made this card, I was in a period of my life when I really didn't have many what people call breaks or downtime or leisure or any of that kind of stuff. And again, this is a composition of images that I clipped and, then I randomly selected, then I put them on a card and I made a story about them, right? But it was during this period that I'm born into the worker position in my family, and that's what you could call in English, as the youngest daughter. And these are some ladies tending the tea plants. I don't know them. They ain't my cousins. And they're the workers. And then you also see in the middle was an image that I got out of a, they always call it like prehistoric writings or something like that out of caves. But that was that image. But this is my worker card. So what I do sometimes with these cards is they're my visual journey. And I just seen the very first card I made. This is the very first card I made. And the lady who I took this training was, and I have a certificate, all that. I'm legit. Legit usually meant you paid some money. Anyway, so, but what this was, she goes, I've been carrying, this is actually a dancer under here. She said, I had been carrying that image around to all my workshops and nobody ever used it. And I thought, I bet I'm the first Indian in your workshop. So, but that card really was about how the earth, when I looked at it, it's from the African continent. When I looked at it, I seen the grass, the springtime grass that has made it through the winter. Like it's like kind of like the ancestors, right? It's that grass from the last years, from the previous time before. And I always think it's really beautiful. Some people say, oh, I can't wait for, the colors to come and stuff. But when the earth is sleeping in the winter, it's beautiful. And like we've had some snowstorms. So when I was coming home, where the tan, if you want to say like the ancestors' earth, when it's covered in slivers of snow, it's beautiful. And so I think winter is beautiful, and you find all kinds of beautiful things. But anyway, I want to share that. This is a mini collage. It's doable with anything you have in front of you. And then I also, I'm just going to reach back and get one of my masks. We'll do this one. So, there, my mask has a mask on it. I better get some of those funny laughing faces. So, this is really, I took this workshop from Kaleo Chin. So he's half Native Hawaiian and half Chinese American, or Chinese. And I also took it with one of my friends that passed just a couple months ago, Ru Suvi, and she's Cree. So there was, we were in this workshop with other Indigenous people, and it was it was in the early 90s, and it was part of an art show where some of the artists and some of the activists had challenged this long-term art show to give space to Indigenous people. And so this was part of a mask exhibit of 100 Indigenous faces of people that came and went through it. And each mask, we took, her scarf is getting a little flat in there, but she's still got her braids. So we took this, and I became a mask maker, and I still am, to help people give a three-dimensional artistic expression, if you want to say, mixed media, to their journey. And this was about my journey at that time. And so I participated in it, and that's my face. But it's not only just my face. It's also my ancestors' face. It's the things about them that during journaling, dreaming, doing visualizations, creating sound, because each mask has a sound. So for a while, when I traveled around, I would always keep this mask, or some people, my trusted people, I would leave it with while I was traveling around. Because that's also part of my journey to have traveled. When opportunities came, I went. So I didn't always know how I was going to get back, but I went. And so I've been some amazing places. But in this mask making experience, you can kind of, I'll show you. So it's out of found material, and it's out of, I have all sorts of masks. Some people now have my mask. One of my relatives asked me if they could take one of my masks because it helped them feel at home because they live far away. So I consented to that. But this journey of mask making is really about that, giving an expression to your story. So you don't need to be, I'm going to just set this back, see how good my, all right. So I want to talk a little bit about that mask making. When I've worked with people on to document and to give expression to their, through the wellness movement, through mask making. I've also worked with Indigenous people all over the world. And there's some things that have come up that I wanted to share with you today about when you do that. When I made that mask in 1993, I didn't expect during the pandemic I'd be sharing it with you. But here we are. So one of the experiences I had with a mother and her child and both of them making masks. The child had, because the mother had made changes in her life, the child didn't have any fear of having the casting of the mask. And there's all sorts of comfort exercises and safety exercises you do before you get to that process. The child didn't have that. She just laid back her head because she trusted the adults around her. She trusted the home she was in. So she just relaxed. And so after we went through those experiences, and then I was casting the mother, we worked out safety stuff, and so when I removed the mask, I asked her, how was that? And she was silent. And I was, uh-oh. So she was silent. But this is what she told me. She said, I didn't want you to take it off because I didn't want to see how beautiful I was. So what she was saying is when she would look, she was afraid to look at her own beauty. But through that mask making, that's something she discovered. She was beautiful. And I think that in mask making and remembering our ancestors, looking at photographs, however you do it, they were beautiful people. And that's how, creativity can lead you back to that beauty, regardless of whatever your experience had been, or maybe how you were treated. It helps you rediscover that beauty that's in your spirit. And she had made a lot of changes in her life. Recovered from addiction, got educated, had a good home, had, a good job. She created safety in her world again. And so I was merely her witness in that process. So I want to talk about sometimes how creativity in telling your story, it has to be told. And don't think that because you don't say it to another human that it's not being told. In the very act of creating, you are telling it to the Creator. You are telling it to the ancestors that are all around you. And I think during this time, that has been part of my, if you want to say, that has been my safety, that has been my way to regain when all this could happen, all the warnings, all the static that's coming from the outside world and other cultures and, people that don't live here or live as an indigenous person. That has helped me regain and create, but I've had to create safety again. And so I want to share with you an experience I had. There's a couple people that were pivotal in my life, and they live on the other side of the imaginary line in Canada. But I was part of a publication called Sweetgrass Grows All Around Her, where they did an open call. They did an open call from Toronto, from Native women in the arts, and to call out for submissions from poetry from all over Turtle Island, or whatever you want to call it, the earth. So I put I sent it off, and then they invited me to be one of the readers. So I get there, and I was like, what? When you're like, kind of like, make sure that you look okay. So I ended up reading with Joy Harjo, right? Now she's the poet laureate, kind of. But also I met Sandra Laron, I met Nancy Cooper, I met Lee Miracle, Janie Lazan, and then I didn't know it, but one of the women she still is one of my sister's my Sisters of the Heart, Carol Gray Eyes, was at that reading. And so we did the, so I was out there doing my stuff, and I just wrote. I kept a journal for a long time, or journals for a long time. And so during the pandemic, I have recommitted to that. But my journals were just script. But on this particular experience during the pandemic, I used what people call poetry, but I just write. I just call it writing. So I was on a phone call with a guy from Albany, New York, about 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago maybe now. And he was working from home, and it was about financial stuff. He wasn't a bill collector or anything like that. He was actually helping me get through their system. And so one of the things early in the call is he had to drop off. He like dropped out of his professional persona because he said, because I had laughed about something, and I said, this system is crazy, but I'm willing to get through it. I know with the times being what they are. And I kind of laughed. And he said, this isn't a laughing matter. And I was like, all right. So then I began to talk to him and share with him what I was also going through, and asking him questions. And one of the things he said to me has stuck with me. And every day when I hear more of what they were experiencing in New York, I think about him and his family, and what that experience is like. But so I wrote this poem, and but there's a part of it that when he said these words, this phrase, we cannot let their deaths be in vain. And at that moment, he's from Albany, New York, and for, he's not from, wasn't from the res, but in that moment, we connected. Because often, that's what I think of the ancestors. Is in those really hard moments, I cannot let what their sacrifice was be in vain. Which means I can't dismiss it. But we must move forward to change. That's what I told him. We must gather ourselves and move forward to change. So I wrote a poem. I'll put it like, I can share it later or whatever. But I also write just to leave an experience behind. Because his fear was not my fear. His experience is not my experience. And I have to live my own path. So sometimes I write to get beyond that. And then also, I consider anything that comes from a pencil, it's an expression. It's a creative expression, whether it's a picture or whatever. So there's an artist on here from British Columbia, Michelle Stoney. And so she's been giving free online classes and doing free coloring books and stuff like that, where you could download her pictures and color them. So I'm going to reach back again. We're almost at the end of the hour. And the tone went off as the transition near the end of the hour. Okay. So I took one of her online classes, and Canadian, the Northern Plains is a funny term, but, I'm Piikani. I'm from the Blackfeet Reservation in Montana. That's my culture. And so, but her class was on how to draw an eagle feather, but in the particular way that she does, like, it's beautiful. So anyway, Michelle Stoney, if you want to look her up. So I signed up for that class, and not signed up. I said I was going to attend, because in Facebook, it's like, like when you don't really want to go somewhere and you go, yeah, I'll be there. Okay, I'll see you there. When you get an invitation, like in the grocery store or somewhere at the gas station, and then you don't go. Facebook's kind of like that, right? For events, you could say you're going, and then, Anyway, I went. So I'm waiting there to draw an eagle feather, and I was looking around for she said, get your supplies together. And I was like, oh no, because anyway. So I ended up with a dull number 2 pencil with an eraser on it. And so I started taking the class, and then she started talking about ovids and T's and stuff. And I was like, huh? This was my expression, huh? So I hung in there. And then she goes, well, I really want to talk about shapes. So we're going to draw an eagle. And I was like, what happened to the feather, right? But what I did is, and the reason I want to bring it up, because right now in the pandemic, there has been a lot of free offers from artists, coloring books, online classes, just really an act of generosity. And ultimately, in creativity, that's the spirit when you're moving forward. When you have that feeling of generosity, of wanting to share, of wanting to encourage, of wanting to show, wanting to gift. And so anyway, I took this class, and so I thought, well, today I can't expect other people. I take healthy risk all the time. Or let's say, I think they're healthy. Anyway, so I took a healthy risk and I took her class. So I want to show you my first ever because I'm not Northwest Coast First Nations Indigenous person, but my inspired journey I took with her, and this is the first eagle I ever drew in this style with a dull number 2 pencil, but it had an eraser. Okay, so I'm just going to show you my sketch. Let's see if you can get it good. So that was in one go because she's a fast teacher. And sometimes having free writes or creativity not have an end goal is what you want. You just there's things called free writing, there's things called free sketching. And so on my agenda to help me is also to be open to new creative experiences. So she did post how to draw a feather. So I'm going to finish because I have to go back and take that class, but I had to do other things, right? Because also during the pandemic, we're kind of, it's like riding a surfboard, right? You're kind of, you still got to, if you're working at home or trying to make money, you're trying to live, you're trying to get the groceries, all that kind of stuff. So my feather is it's in process, but I want to show it to you. See? It's the bottom half. So there's all sorts of opportunities all the time for creativity and to learn new things, to have expression. So I want to kind of finish up the story about being able to read with the women at Native Women in the Arts in Toronto, Canada. And so what that led to was a couple weeks later, they sent me this announcement for the Center for Indigenous Theater summer program. So I put together Joe Fisher here from the reservation. I almost got in an accident right before he was going to film and that was when VHS tapes. If you're too young to know what that is, anyway, look it up. But he filmed my audition tape. But like an hour before that, I almost got in an accident, so I was a little shooken up. But anyway, I put in my tape, and Joe helped me through that. So I went up to the Center for Indigenous Theater, and I found out that there were a lot of things they trained me in, that's how I act. I mean, I had already acted like that my whole life, right? And, but it was a good experience because sometimes when you're pursuing a creative endeavor, it's important to find other humans, other peers. They might be from your tribe, it might even be your cousin or whatever, that also believe in feeding that spirit. So I think one of the things about social media right now is we're all feeding the spirit to help each other. The social distancing powwows, all the artists celebrating, people just sharing what they're cooking every night. Holy, we're going to have some fun runs. It's going to be mandatory to have fun runs and walks before every Indian event after this. But you see some people chefing up, or they'll say, this is the first thing I never break bread before. They'll do something, you know. So all that sharing about your experience right now is creative. It's an act of generosity to help us all collectively move forward through this. So I'm coming to the end of the hour, and I had to bring my other clock in here. So there's a couple of things too I wanted to talk about, and just to say about using your creative talent, or your spirit, you know, but also the importance of being open to people. I'm just going to call it what I was going to call it initially. To be open to the dream time. Because sleeping right now we're sleeping, and we are, in a way, some people, you know, as you know, the fast res train or the fast res car was moving along, you know, going and going and going and going and going. And that concept of multitasking, you know, is really, we've had to press the pause button. And the dream time is really important now. So maybe, you know, you want to share dreams. Maybe you want to make an expression of your dreams. Even the ones that maybe were scary. You know, like if something starts out scary, as you go along and you pray your way out of fear. And that's what's called courage. You know, I heard that one time as a definition, is that courage is fear that has said its prayers. And so during the power hours, you will hear a lot of words of encouragement, but you'll also hear like techniques, using the earth medicines, you know, to ask for help, or just going outside in the air and the sun, you know. So as we move along in this journey that we're all on. And so really the creative spirit to me is just that. And the dream time that we're all going through now is really important. I had a series of, if I want to say, my dream time experience was kind of, I'm just going to tell you about one of them, because it was kind of, I was having what people would call maybe like a nightmare. And so it was scary. But who rescued me there in my dream is my little Chihuahua pug lady. And she appeared in my dream, and she was dressed up in her dog version of Emilio Zapata. You know, so she had like a little bandoleros over. She even had like little bullets on her back, you know, holding on her back. And she had this harness on, and somebody had cinched it kind of tight. So in the dream, first thing I did is I picked her up, and I said, "No, we're moving out of this scene, if you want to say, we're moving out." And so the first thing I did is I unloosened that harness that was cinched tight with the bullets on it, right? And I took it off her. I said, "You don't have to wear this." And when I thought about that dream after I woke up, that's what I told myself. My hypervigilance, or my need to be on point, you know, all this time, you know, during the pandemic, I don't need to do that. And so even telling you all the story about that, right, is releasing that and moving beyond those feelings where I have to be on watch and I have to be, you know, ready. And for a while I had, anyway, I just want to share that as we're closing out the hour. And so I really appreciate, I had all these things. What if I run out of things to talk about? So I had all these things behind me. But I also have, an acrylic picture by Asa Wright, and also from my relatives in the north. We had a great event, and this is their t-shirt. I love t-shirts in Indian country because that's our creative hopes and dreams in a visual form, just like all our other victory shirts were. I don't like to use the term war shirt, but our victory shirts. That's what a t-shirt is. It says we are counting coup now. We are having victory. So I look forward to all your creative victory stories from this time. And then I also want to thank, look, I wrote it down. Oh, it would be backwards on it. The Noise Foundation for this time, for Native Wellness. And I encourage you tomorrow to tune in to Marcus Red Thunder and Men's Wellness Journey. And I hear that he's going to have a special guest. Okay, so you all have a good day, and love you all, and take care. And remember, everybody's got a number 2 pencil in their house. Bye.